Good afternoon, Grace family. Excited to be here with you. Took till Friday, but we got to it. Job chapter 37. So if you've been following along with us in the Job series, you know that last couple of weeks have been kind of slow in getting them out. If you remember on Monday, I said that we were going to try to hit, going right towards the end of the series in Job. Because what ends up happening over the course of chapters, basically from where we left off, 14 and 15, up until the end of 37, is a consistent back and forth between Job and his three friends and another man who comes along the way. And these four individuals contradict Job. They come back against the things that Job says to continue to defend God. And what ends up happening throughout the course of Job is that these four men take it upon themselves to defend God and defend God's honor and God's justice, and in turn to accuse Job of doing evil and doing wrong. When Job actually hadn't, to that point, done anything evil and done anything wrong. And so they accuse wrongly, and they try to defend God. And one of the things that I think most Christian theologians I've heard say nowadays, we don't try to defend God. God defends himself, and that's exactly what we see is going to happen. We conclude chapter 37. We're going to pick up the very end of 37, just to kind of give you a little bit of context, so you know who's speaking. We have the conversation. Elihu kind of finalizes a statement coming back against Job, something that Job has said. He basically concludes in chapter 37, verse 14, you see it here on the screen, hear this, O Job, stop and consider the wondrous works of God. And he, again, is extolling the wonders of God. And verse 23 of that chapter is where we're going to be picking up. And this is where Elihu finishes and God begins. So verse 23, chapter 37. The Almighty, we cannot find him. He is great in power, justice, and abundant righteousness he will not violate. Therefore men fear him. He does not regard any who are wise in their own conceit. And the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you will make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? And what were its bases sunk? And who laid its cornerstone? When all the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who was it that shut in the sea with doors when I made it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it and set bars and doors, and said, Thus shall far you shall come and no farther, and here you shall your proud waves be stayed. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, or caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked shall be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked into the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of the deep darkness? Have you to comprehend the expanse of the earth? Declare it if you know all of this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and where is the place of darkness? That you may take it to its territory, that you may discern the paths to its home. You know, for you are born, and then the number of your days is great. Have you entered the storehouses of snow, or have you seen the storehouses of hail, which I reserve for a time of trouble, or the day of battle or war? What is the way to the place where the light is distributed, and where the east wind is scattered upon the earth? Who has cleft the channel for the torrents of rain, and a way for the thunderbolt, to bring rain on a land where no man is, on the desert where there is no man, to satisfy the waste of a desolate land, and to make the ground sprout with grass? God continues, and we're not going to read every single thing, that he continues to ask these questions. He begins talking about the animals. And as he begins talking about the animals, we're going to be picking up in chapter 40, verse 19. And it says, "Do you give the horse his might? Do you clothe his neck with a mane? Do you make him leap like the locust? His majestic snorting is terrifying. He paws in the valley and exalts his strength, and he goes out to meet the weapons. He laughs at fear and is not dismayed. He does not turn back from the sword. Upon him rattle the quiver and the flashing, the spear and the javelin. With fierceness and rage he swallows the ground. He cannot stand still at the sound of the trumpet. When the trumpet sounds, he says, 'Aha!' and smells the battle from afar, the thunder of captains and shouting. Is it by your understanding that the hawk soars and spreads its wings towards the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high? On the rock he dwells and makes his home, and on the rocky crag and stronghold. From there he spies out the prey, and his eyes behold it from afar. His young ones suck up the blood, and where the slain are, there he is.' And the Lord said to Job, 'Shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God, let him answer it.'" Now, all of this section to say, there's not a whole lot. I mean, we could go over all of the individual statements. But this is at the core of what God is asking in chapter 40, verses 1 and 2, and what we see looking back at chapter 37. I'm just going to go back there for a second. Ehud starts with the Almighty. We cannot find him. He's great in power. As in, we cannot search him out. That's kind of what the idea is being said here. We cannot find him. We cannot search him out. He can't be searched out. He's great in power. His justice and abundance and righteousness he will not violate. Ehud's right. He's absolutely true in saying that. And it's for those reasons that men fear him and others. And he doesn't regard any who are wise in their own conceit. Now, what's interesting is the Lord then answers Job out of the whirlwind. Apparently, there's this whirlwind that comes up. Now, we don't know if it's as Ehud is finishing speaking. There's no desire for there to be this consistent storyline narrative. We see that narrative in the beginning where there's this storyline of what occurs, but then there's obviously this time span gap that happens, and then there's these conversations between Job and his three friends and the fourth man. And during this time, Job is continuing to interact with these people, and at some point the interactions cease. In 38 begins a different interaction. We don't know whether Job was out in the land by himself, and all of a sudden a whirlwind came up, and from the whirlwind God spoke. We don't know exactly how it came about. We don't know if it came about while the other men were standing there, although we do assume it probably isn't while he's standing there. But the Lord ultimately then responds, and he first starts by saying, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" Now, here's the thing. What God is referring to is not Job. There, he's referring to his friends. He's referring to his friends, and I say that because as we get to the end of Job, God specifically comes against his friends. And God comes against his friends, and we'll see this, primarily because they spoke without knowledge. They spoke without knowledge. And this is something we have to be really cautious on as Christians, is sometimes we're really tempted to wade into conversations and act as if we have an authority on something when maybe we don't. And so, for instance, in this instance, we have his friends, and they're weighing in that Job must be guilty of something, because God would never give such consequences to Job if it wasn't related to something that he did wrong. God would never allow Job to experience difficulty without it be related to his sin. And that's where they were wrong. They darkened counsel by words without knowledge. And so God comes against Job's friends in that way. But then he turns to Job in verse 3 and says, "Dress for action." Now, in the context of ancient times, this would be where you'd be wearing like a robe, and you would gird up your robe, you tie it around your belt so that you could be ready to run, or you'd be ready to fight. And so God is telling Job, okay, you've wanted to interact with me. You've wanted to question me. You've wanted to come and plead your case before me. Well, time to buckle up, buddy. Dress for action like a man. I'm going to question you, and you will make it known to me. I will question you, and you will tell me. Now, this is a instance where God is declaring to Job, "Who are you, Job? Who are you, Job?" And that's the very first thing that God addresses. Excuse me. Sorry. So verse 4 begins a series of questions. And these questions are God asking Job for something and expecting Job to provide an answer. Now, every question that we read, as you're probably kind of got the clue on, Job has no idea the answer. Some of these things we know more actually now than Job probably did in his day, but we still don't know the fullness of the answer for a lot of these questions. But verse 4, right off the bat, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Hey Job, when I created everything, where were you? Where were you? Do you have an understanding of that question? Verse 5. Who was it that determined its measurements? Surely you know. Who was it that stretched the line upon it, the measuring line, to determine how big it was going to be? Verse 6. Or where was its basis sunk? Who laid the cornerstone? Who laid the foundation of the world? Who was it? Who did it? What was the basis of the foundation? When all the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God sounded for joy, then this is possibly in reference to angels, possibly in reference to spiritual beings. This is possibly just in reference to heavenly hosts, kind of beings of those sorts that occurred in the foundation of the creation of the world. Who was it that did that? When all of this occurred? Or who shut in the seas with doors when it burst out from the womb? This is describing something interesting regarding the creation, what the creation looked like. When I made clouds its garment, thick darkness its swaddling band, right? This darkness of space, clouds that kind of covers the earth, right? You can begin to kind of see God's describing what the world's creation looked like. He's saying, where were you? Where were you? Who did that? Was it you? Were you involved? Who said, thus shall you come and no farther, and here you shall be your proud ways be stayed? Right? Talking about the oceans and the waters. Verse 12, have you commanded the morning since your days began and caused the dawn to know its place? Did you set up the time? Did you set up time itself? And the motion of the stars and the sun, the moon, and the earth? Did you do all of that? And he goes on and he continues to talk about the different aspects. Oh, sorry, I just changed translations there. My bad. But so, then he even, I love the verse 16 where he says, have you entered the springs of the sea or walked into the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehend the expanse of the earth? Do you understand how big the earth is? And they had no concept at this time. We still struggling with the concept of how big the earth is, how expansive it is, and then beyond the earth. He says, declare it if you know all of this. Now, I don't know if God paused in his interactions with Job, waiting for a response and then continued, or if he just rapid fire. But he continues to talk to Job and continues to ask these questions. And he goes into animals as well. Can you tell me about the animals? Can you tell me how they work? Can you tell me why they do what they do? All of those kind of things. And he goes into specifically the horse. And I like how he went through the horse in Job's 39:19 and following. Did you give his neck a mane? Did you make him leap like a locust? Think about this. God is basically saying that he is sovereign in this animal, in the way that it was designed and created, and the things that it does. And even just thinking about the animal of the horse, God starts detailing some of the things the horse is used for, and how it's a fearsome animal in combat. And he's like, do you get this? Do you understand why the hawk soars and spreads its wings toward the south. Do you get that? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high? Look, this is God saying he sovereignly controls the eagles, right? That's what it's saying. Verse 40, chapter 40, verse 1, and the Lord said to Job, shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God, let him answer. You wanted to find fault with what I've chose to do with you, Job. You wanted to contend with me? Here I am. Here I am. You are here to contend with me. Here I am. He who argues with God, let him answer. Now tomorrow, well, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday, but Monday we're going to take a look at Job's response, and you can see here in the category Job promises silence, and we're going to take a look at that tomorrow. Monday. Looking forward to doing that with you. But be thinking about that. Be thinking about the kind of God that we serve, the Almighty that we serve. Who is he? And who is he that he should respond to us? And what is it that he has done? And how is he in control of the world as we know it? That's what I'm going to leave you with. God bless you all. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday as we continue our series in Romans chapter 3. God bless you all. Take care.